Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Is that Hayden there?
Yes.
Hayden, I'm Dan Speak.
Great. Nice to meet you.
Good to be meeting you too.
Yeah.
Have you been buried in a bunch of info about graduate programs today, or are we just jumping in right now?
This is actually the only one that yeah, so this is the first bit.
Okay,
So
good.
fresh
I,
ears.
I feel that's good. It doesn't feel like I have to worry that you've already been bombarded and have no interest in hearing anything we might want to talk about now. So that worked out good.
Absolutely.
You want to tell me, Hayden, what's the situation here? What do you think? Are you thinking about the LMU graduate program here?
I am, yeah. I've looked at a few programs and was actually in the area in July and was able to tour campus
Oh,
and
good.
see the area.
Yeah.
I didn't get to talk specifically about the philosophy program though, so
Okay.
was kind of curious.
Yeah.
Just to I saw the email come through that there was an open house and thought I
Yeah.
could ask some questions and
Absolutely.
hear some thoughts about it. And yeah, so
Perfect.
that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Sounds great. And so you've seen, the campus is nice. Where are you coming from? Where's home for you, Brad?
So I'm living right now in Provo, Utah, which is
Okay.
just south of Salt Lake. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Did you go to school in Utah there?
Yeah, I'm graduated from Utah Valley University, which is in
Okay.
Orem. I don't know if you know the area, but
A
yeah.
little bit. Not,
Uh-huh.
I have the sense of kind of the locations a little, but not yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And uh philosophy, is this like I'm applying for sure to a few programs, I'm just deciding which ones, or is this still I'm really putting my toe in the water to see if I'm even interested in this thing?
I'm pretty definite
Okay.
that I'm gonna apply. It's just
Yeah.
kind of narrowing down programs and seeing what would be the best fit at this point. So
Nice. Okay.
yeah.
Well, we could go one of two ways here. We could I could give you like an overview and we could chat about some of those details. And that would take pressure off of you. Or I could just keep the pressure right on you and I could just like be interested in, because I'm genuinely interested in what you're
Yeah.
interested in and how we might be helpful and how I might be personally helpful. I could go either way. You want to hear about us a little bit first, or you want to just like let's just grind it out between us?
Maybe we'll do that second option and
Okay.
just see. Let's get into it.
Yeah,
I've
I like
looked
it.
into the program kind of
Good.
overview quite a bit,
Yeah,
and so have a sense.
exactly.
But yeah, so yeah, I'd be down to just kind of talk.
Okay. Well, so what fired you up to be thinking about graduate school in the first place then?
Well, I studied behavioral science for my undergrad, and then took a couple philosophy classes, and ended up finishing my behavioral science major, and then getting another degree in philosophy because
Well, it's
it just
another
kind of
full degree, not just a
yeah.
major, but a full degree.
Well, by the time I kind of like came around to studying philosophy, I had already pretty much finished the behavioral science degree, and so just
Okay.
decided to finish that up and then do the coursework necessary to get the
Gotcha.
philosophy degree as well.
Okay.
It just really interested me, and I love reading philosophy, writing philosophy, all of that, but also teaching. I was
Okay.
able to work with one of my favorite professors at the university, or at Utah Valley University. I was able to TA for them for a few years,
Oh,
and getting
wow.
that
Okay.
experience of like leading discussion in the classroom, and like
Yes.
all of that has just been like my favorite thing
Okay.
of all time. And I was
Yeah.
like, it'd be great if I could just kind of do that forever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so there's
That's
that.
that's pretty great. I mean,
It
it is
is.
it is nice to know that you could enjoy teaching it, right? Because that's
Yeah.
some people are really gripped by the ideas, which you have to be. You absolutely have to be.
Yes.
And then they can get into situations like, well, yeah, I really want to think about it and write about it, but I don't know if I want to teach it.
Yeah.
So knowing that in advance can be kind of nice. Good.
Yeah. That's one of the things I enjoy, like just reading over the program description, seeing it seems like there is an emphasis on like
Yeah,
teaching. So yeah.
that's right. That's right. And I think we're actually pretty good on that score, because we do have this teaching philosophy seminar. And then if typically what the structure of that, if you were able to piece it together, you probably could see. But the way it works is, in when people are here for their first semester, they take our pro seminar and a couple of other seminars, and then in the second semester, if you're interested in the teaching, which you would be,
Yeah.
you would take the teaching philosophy seminar, which is really built around. It really is a kind of philosophy of teaching philosophy. It's a genuine philosophy course, but it's got a strong sort of practical application to we're just beginning to teach a set of critical thinking courses for psych majors. So you'd be interesting, right? You've got the behavioral
hey.
science side.
Yeah.
Our psych majors, you could probably appreciate this. Our psych major is huge here. There's
Okay.
way too many psych majors, and they're getting bombarded. They've got a huge program, and they've decided that they wanted to institute a requirement. It used to be a requirement, and then it got eliminated. And now they wanted to bring it back, where their majors have to take a critical thinking course as part of their major, but they don't have the expertise to teach it. So our graduate students, basically, and maybe some others if we need to fill in, but mostly our graduate students are going to teach this kind of critical thinking for psychology, for the social sciences.
Oh, wow, cool.
Which is kind of cool. And so that course, that teaching philosophy seminar, a lot of it is just sort of general pedagogy, developing you thinking about the philosophy of teaching philosophy. But then the last bit is like a kind of really hone in on what are you going to do with this course, this critical thinking course, get familiar with the text and the strategies and structures. And then in your second year, you can teach a section of that critical thinking course in both the fall and the spring. And then you make a little bit more money, right? You get it. That counts since it's expensive, right?
Yeah.
It can be kind of a nice little addition. It can, looks good on your applications if you want to do doctoral work, or if you want to go on and do some other kind of teaching. But you can also make a little money and get to do a thing you already like.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the structure of that.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah. What's the stuff that really fired up your engines philosophically, really got you motivated?
Yeah, one of the reasons I came across this program in particular, I was kind of running through the SPEP list of like recommended programs. And so a lot of the stuff that interests me, the program at Utah Valley University leans pretty continental. And so I am very much interested in history, philosophy, continental thought.
Yeah.
I really have enjoyed Foucault and Marx a lot. Really interested in environmental philosophy though as well, and see, of course, the value in like the analytic tradition as well. Like, I think I'm kind of looking for
blah, say things to make me feel okay about myself. I get it. Sure. Yeah.
No, it's true. It's, but the two like mentors I had in my program were a Beauvoir scholar, very much interested in like existentialism, phenomenology, just like a straight up epistemologist, ethicist.
Yes.
And those are really two major things for me. Just epistemology, I love.
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to get as into it as some of the other continental stuff, but I'm interested. And so anyway.
Well, that sounds, you've done your research, so that given those interests, we are a pretty good place, and maybe kind of uniquely good in certain ways, because it's not uncontentious. Okay. Just, you don't need to know all the backstory, but it's not uncontentious, but quite general. I mean, things are going to be contentious. You have 17 faculty members. You're not going to agree on everything. But one thing we are broadly quite seriously committed to is a real philosophical pluralism. And that's reflected in how as the graduate director, how I set up the graduate seminars and how we interact with each other around the department, and how grad students feel supported. And I think we do pretty doggone good by that. So let's see, next semester, Ian Moore, he's really wonderful. He's a younger scholar, but if you pay attention, you'll see he's a really good Heidegger scholar. And he's teaching a seminar on continental political thought, where he's like really trying to think about sort of a kind of a core theme. I'm forgetting what the thematic feature is, but it's a kind of a deep dive into the way that lots of political philosophy has been done in the continental tradition around the theme of, is it around hegemony? Is it I forget the thing. And then in the next fall, so that would be the fall that if you were coming, Brad Stone, who's great on Foucault and Heidegger, he is going to be doing a Foucault seminar in the fall. That's the plan. you've probably picked up, given the way you put it, like my colleague Brian Trainer, who's great on a bunch of things in contemporary continental thought,
Uh-huh.
especially French, and especially things about philosophy of religion, but also his environmental philosophy stuff is really, really wonderful.
Yeah.
So it touches on a lot of things that are going to be good fits for you in that regard. And there's a decent bunch of our grad students who come with those interests. You'd find a pretty decent community right away for things like that.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's good to hear. I appreciate knowing too that one of the things I'm trying to do is find a program that is interested in continental philosophy, but is
Yeah.
also like, because I feel like my interests in continental philosophy are still grounded in like political topics
Oh,
and
interesting.
things.
Yeah.
So I
Good.
do appreciate that
Yeah.
being kind of a
Yeah.
lens through which it's taught. So
It's
yeah,
too bad you're not going to be able to be here in the spring. That had been fun.
yeah,
Um, well, and the other point I was just going to make about the epistemology is we do some epistemology around here, and especially our colleague Jason Bear. And one of the things that I think you would probably especially appreciate about him is while he's a straight up analytic philosopher in one sense with all of the chops for doing standard epistemology, but he's motivated principally, he's known as a virtue epistemologist.
oh,
So there's a way in which he's a lot more concerned about the history of philosophy than many epistemologists are, because he's
yeah,
like, come on, there's this whole theory and history of virtue theory that he's mining for ways that it's going to be relevant to, what you might think of as traditional problems in epistemology, but now trying to address those from the
yeah,
standpoint of reflection on, you know, what is curiosity, what is open-mindedness, what is intellectual humility, and how is that related to the standard problems that we have, if it's related at all. And so there's like kind of a nice package of folks here who, I mean, Aristotle looms large around here, but whether as a foil or as a friend or foe,
for sure.
he's someone lots of people are taking seriously, whether it's in ethics, metaphysics, politics, epistemology, and that kind of that theme sort of runs through. And as a Catholic institution, you can imagine that means that Aquinas plays a decent role too,
For
right?
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, lots of ways in which it does seem to me, Hayden, it would fit your interest quite well.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Great to hear.
We don't like. I think there are a lot of us who are interested in political philosophy. Well, no, Martin Emiano, he's taught a grad course in political philosophy too. But all of us have like sympathies for political philosophy, so that you'd find ways to, no one's dismissive political philosophy. Well, I shouldn't say no one. There are people who are dismissive, but there's
Okay.
plenty of people who are interested in political philosophy. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. That sounds good. That sounds good.
How are you picturing your longer term plans? Not that you have to have them all worked out right now, of course. Hayden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so I graduated in 2020
Mhm.
with my philosophy degree, and
Mhm.
have been kind of puzzling through a process and exactly what I want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, the ideal goal is obviously like to continue on from a master's to a PhD and try
Okay.
to enter the field.
Well, I really was asking you. Say,
Yeah,
obviously,
I
I don't
guess it's
know.
not.
Right,
I
but
guess
yeah.
it's
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's not really obvious, but that's
Yeah.
kind of the like the end goal that I
Yeah.
have in mind.
Okay.
But with that, I understand how like difficult a world that is to enter, and can be
Yeah.
kind of challenging. Um, so I have other interests and stuff too, but I just really felt like um, at least getting the master's degree would be
Yeah.
just intrinsically rewarding and
I
kind
think
of
that's
like
right. Yeah.
help me move toward any number of like potential outcomes is kind of where I'm at with it. So I'm kind of going into it with the thought that it'll give me a great opportunity to continue my education and things
Yeah.
that I'm like passionate about. It'll help me become better acquainted with teaching, which I know I would love to do in some capacity.
Yeah. Good. Mhm.
And then potentially it could lead to some other opportunities with PhD work or
Good.
some other kind of opportunity. So
Nice.
yeah,
That seems like a pretty healthy outlook, to be honest, Hayden. I mean, we do think of our program as having multiple aims, but probably at least 75%, maybe 80% or more of the people who come are basically like, my goal is to get a PhD in philosophy. And now some of what happens while they're here is they learn, well, I don't really want to, right? And that's for us, that's a win, right? Somebody who spends 2 years with us and learns a bunch of philosophy and decides, I don't want to do the PhD, but I want to, I'm going to be a lifetime philosopher. I'm just not going to do a PhD.
Yeah.
We count that as a win. But we are also, substantially trying to help people think about, well, how would you get into the PhD program that you'd be really happy with?
Cool.
And I could say some more about the things we do to try to help with that, but you can probably picture how they go. I mean, but maybe I'll just say this, that on my view, if you were to come, right, this is true for wherever you go, wherever you do your MA, I think you should be envisioning it as having, these are the gross pragmatic goals, right? I mean, there's the intrinsic goals are the ones we care most about, which is you want to become a better philosopher, a better writer, deeper understanding of the issues that you care about, with a broader understanding of the history. Okay, that's all the intrinsic good stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
To the ugly pragmatic things from the standpoint of your goals, I think are, you should, you want to come away from your MA program with two things. One is a kick-ass writing sample for doctoral work.
Yeah.
And two is at least 3 really strong letters of recommendation from people who've seen a good bit of your work, who can talk, not just, it's not good enough for people to be say, we really like Hayden. Hayden's great. Hayden got an A in my seminar. It's you want it to be, in the best cases where you're trying to go to the best places, you want it to be, I've seen these 3 things of Hayden's. This one's of a publishable quality. The writing sample he sent to you has these virtues, and they can talk about it in detail. I have every reason to believe that Hayden is going to be able to do first-rate work, first-rate research work at your institution. That's the kind of thing you want 3 people to be able to say, right?
Yeah.
And it's, that's doable. That happens, and that's true. So I think one of the things that's nice is we've got a lot of people here, so you can kind of you should be able to find 3 people. You don't click with somebody, that's fine. You'll find somebody else who you can click with.
Yeah.
And everybody does have that kind of vision about folks who would be in your situation. And then we don't do it's a coursework MA. We don't have a thesis. In some respects, that's because what we really want you to do is have a kick-ass writing sample, right? And theses tend to be bigger. A kick-ass writing sample, on my view, is 15 to 20 pages. People are doing theses that are often 50 pages, and that's not really a good shape. You can't send that to anybody. It has to do a bunch of background work. So we want people to just really write that take one of your term papers that you did, or some central issue that you got worked, and just get that thing honed. And the best way to do that, we think, is, if you take a seminar that is really in your wheelhouse, right? You take the Foucault in your first semester, or you take a Heidegger course in the second year, what have you, and you've got a term paper that you can really develop. Then what we urge is, like, in your third semester or your last semester, you take a directed study. You're allowed to take one of those. There's not a seminar. You can just do a directed study. You get with the person who's like the right person to help you with that, and you spend the entire semester, you'll do a directed study on some related thing where you're going to read a bunch of, Heidegger, say, or Dreyfus on Heidegger or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to get that writing sample in absolutely pristine shape. And then boom, then that gets you ready to, that's kind of, in my mind, that's our ideal when we're doing it really well and people come in with a vision for it. That's the way it can work, is that you're going to do really good work in your seminars. And so you're going to have 3 people who you've had ongoing conversations with, who you do some teaching for them or something, so that they can talk about your work in great detail. And then you have this one paper that's like, this thing's my baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No, that,
we're happy to work on that. That's kind of the goal. Yeah.
cool. Yeah. That sounds like a good, a good structure. Yeah.
Yeah.
To leave with a writing sample that's high quality
It's
would be
tough in
awesome.
2 years to get the timing to work right. 2 years goes fast.
Yeah.
So
Real fast.
it's like, wow, you really, it's like you want to get on it right when you get started. And part of the time we're like, oh, we want you to just get your feet under you, but you really have to get moving. So it can be a little delicate to get that balance exactly right. But it does seem
Yeah.
like people can find that rhythm in the right way.
Cool. Cool.
Um, how's California for you?
I love it. I mean, it's close by. We spent I am married,
Yes.
and
Okay.
we spent a week or so in Long Beach
Yeah.
with my partner's father who lives down there,
Yeah.
and we just kind of stayed with him and I've been to California prior to that, but we just loved it there. That's part of the interest
Yeah.
as well, as just the location is
Yeah.
it's not too far a move for us, but is really, we want to
And
be,
families there.
and there's family
Yeah, that's nice.
there,
Yeah.
and it's
Jason
yeah.
Bear lives in Long Beach. I live a little south of Long Beach, so that's like
Okay.
we drive from there. So yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay.
yeah, I mean, depends on how you want to. I don't know if your partner, the father is like fun to see once a year, or it can be different, right? Like
Yeah,
I don't
for
really
sure.
want to be that close, or no, it would be
Uh-huh.
great. Yeah,
No, it's a good
yeah,
relationship, so
yeah.
we wouldn't
Good,
mind.
good.
Yeah, being close to family would be helpful, I think,
Yeah, that's
for
great.
us.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, because keep in mind, I mean, part of it on that. So if my wife were here, Hayden, she'd be kicking me under the table. I get a little overly personal. I start to get a little invasive. So you just knock me down if I get a little
okay.
because what you can see what I'm sort of probing is enough now to know like it's expensive to live in California.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I
That
worry
is
a lot about our grad students. It's expensive. The program itself is expensive.
mhm.
And then living here is expensive. And how realistic can it be? And it does help if people have a reason to be here independently
Yeah.
and there's
Mhm.
family support and you kind of know what you're getting yourself into. I don't like it when people get sort of shocked. I really
Yeah.
don't want people to like get here and be like, oh my God, I can't, how could I possibly live? You're here already, right? Like
Uh-huh.
eyes
Yeah.
wide open. It's beautiful. I love it. I mean, you're since you've been on campus, but like here, my office is like looking
Yeah.
onto the marina, right? I
Uh-huh.
mean, it's great.
Yeah.
But no surprises about the fact that it's costly, and that's a thing for you and your partner to be as honest with each other
Yeah.
about as you can be. Um, and I'll be as honest with you as I can be about those things too. So
Yeah. Definitely. No, that's appreciated. Yeah, it's definitely a factor that's working into everything.
yeah,
But yeah, I think I am kind of looking for places though that we would have some kind of support near us,
exactly.
and some kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think California would be a decent fit for those reasons.
I think some people undervalue that. I mean, it's a really valuable thing to not be stuck someplace. Hey, we love each other, but it would be nice to have some friends. It'd be nice to have
Yeah.
some family.
Yeah.
And I think people can kind of get into, especially in MA programs, there's some kind of isolated places that are
Yeah.
great. You get really great education there, but especially for a partner, like, what am I doing for 2 years?
Yep. That's yeah. There's a faculty member at my institution who they had kind of a like, so you want to go to grad school
Yeah,
thing,
good.
and those
Yeah.
attended that, and they kind of shared their experience with that, moving out into a totally new place with no one that they knew around,
Oh,
and how
right.
difficult. They ended up finishing, I'm pretty sure they were accepted into a PhD program, finished a master's like worth of work, and left the program to come back home, and then went back and got a doctorate afterward, but it was
Interesting.
so hard that it
It had
just kind
just
of
been, yeah, it was
rocked
too
them.
much at the time. Right.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
that's definitely front of mind for me
Yeah.
too, is making sure that we make responsible decisions in that way. But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
I mean, because you've looked and you've seen, maybe I could just say a little bit about the money situation more specifically then,
yeah,
just so it's clear in your mind. It's $1,300 a unit. It's a 30 unit degree. So, that's almost $4,000 per class. It's close to that per
Yeah.
seminar. So, it's going to be pushing 40,000 with a short stick over the 2 years.
Yeah.
Now, that's just straight up. Now, we do a couple of things that to make this perfectly clear. So we have some resources for what we call tuition awards. So when I get the applications and we start looking at the applications that we think are strong and that we want to support, we can usually offer tuition remission funds somewhere between $6,000 and $9,000
Okay.
per year. So that takes a chunk off, right? Then we also have graduate student, they're called GSA positions, graduate student assistants.
Yeah.
They're used around the university in various ways. We've got a few in our department that means that there's like very light administrative tasks that we're asking this person to do, but it's very light. Like for the ones for us, I really try to use them as, this is just a way to get our students an extra $15,000 because that's
Cool.
what they have to for the year.
That's great.
And then they do things like, we have a graduate philosophical society. They run that. We've got like events where, we're going to go bowling. The department,
Yeah.
there's a faculty graduate student bowling thing coming up. They organize that a bit for us, or if we're going to have meals, but it's really like, I don't want them spending a bunch of time on this. I want the graduate student assistantship to help them be freed up to do better philosophy, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And so we have a couple of those that are available. And then, so if someone applies and they get a strong tuition remission, suppose you got $8,000 per year, right? That's going to take 16,000 off. And then if you've got a graduate assistantship, that's another 15,000 for each of the years.
Yeah.
Now you're still gonna have to, there's still some out-of-pocket costs, but they could be they might, if you do teach, right? The person who teaches in their second year, it can get pretty close to breaking even overall.
Okay.
But it's not, keep this in mind, Hayden, there are a lot of our competitors, places where I love the people and they're friends of mine and what have you. They're not only just, you're coming in tuition free, but they're paying you a stipend, right?
Yeah.
And we don't have that. It breaks my heart that we don't have that. But we don't have it. And so I do think that's one of the things to factor in when you, in the process is, hey, if I don't know what places you're looking at, given your interests, I know the ones that have, I know the MA programs with analytic focus a little bit more, but take a place like Georgia State, right? I think they're paid, it's in Atlanta. I think that their stipend is like $14,000 or $16,000 a year. So in addition to your everything being paid, you'd be making, you'd have income, right?
Yeah.
That's hard to beat, right? From time to time, I'll have students who get accepted at both places, and especially someone like you who could say, hey, Georgia State's offering me this money. I'd much rather come, given my interest, I'd rather be with you guys. There's not really working on those things at Georgia State. And I get it, but it's too good to pass up. You can't pass up free money to do this, and not just that you're breaking even, but you will like literally be debt free. You won't have to and then decide what you want to do for your PhD.
Yeah.
We can't compete with that, Hayden, and I wish we could. And in my concern for you, qua person and philosopher, like I want the best for you. And if you get that kind of option, like I'll just be saying more power to you, right?
Cool. Cool. I appreciate that honesty, and And definitely that's something I'll have to factor in after the applications go
Yeah,
through and I see kind of where things land.
great.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Anything else I can help with? You have me at your service. And of course, if you don't think of things right now, you can always email me. Hey, it's not a big deal. But
Okay.
are there things we haven't thought about that you've got on your mind?
I mean, I think we've talked about most of it. The one thing I was kind of curious about, like I noticed in the program overview, there was talk
Yeah.
about like a little bit of interdisciplinary possibilities, working with like the English department or
Yes.
theological studies departments. Is that like limited to those departments, or is there potential? Just thinking with my interest in like environmental studies or things
Love it.
like that, is that possible to do that kind of work?
Yeah, good. Um, Definitely possible. It's nice that we have Brian in our department who's kind of spearheading a lot of the environmental stuff. So it might not have to be interdisciplinary, but if you wanted it to be, because, for example, we do have some environmental scientists involved, um, for example, and you wanted to, given that you've got some background that might be able to make sense of that kind of stuff,
Uh-huh.
there'd be definitely ways to do that. The,
Okay.
the the limitation is just that we've been trying to have these interdisciplinary courses only use one course of your 30, right? And you can
Oh
see
yeah, yeah.
why. We want it to be a philosophy degree, so we try not to do. We don't. We wouldn't want you to take, 3 courses in environmental science per se, because we still got to call it a philosophy degree.
For sure.
But so we build in one. Could you talk us into one more if it was like a really good fit, and yeah, you could
Okay.
definitely do that. So there's some flexibility on that, and it's
Yeah.
certainly encouraged. And you know yeah, I wish I knew a little bit more about the kinds of overlaps for environmental studies stuff, but Brian does. Like, he's great. That
Yeah.
you should just poke around Brian Trainer's profile a little bit to
Yeah.
see how really, really super cool he is.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think the other questions I think we pretty much covered,
Okay.
but
Great.
yeah, I really appreciate it though.
Of course. Of course. Yeah, and do think of the lines of communication is wide open now. So,
Okay.
don't hesitate to send an email and just be like, "Hey, Dan, here's the thing I forgot that I was interested in,
Cool.
about the community and the personalities around here and what have you." Um, we've got a pretty good community of people who like being around each other, and
That's
there's
good
a
too.
good philosophical graduate philosophical society. They get together semi regularly to eat and read each other's papers, and then my job, of course, is to make fun of them in various ways.
That sounds wonderful.
Give
Yeah,
and
that's
take. Give and take.
important to have good community
That's
too.
right.
I'm lucky
Yes.
to be in a department that is also very like they all get along and it's like
Yes. That makes a
wonderful.
difference.
So yeah,
Yes.
they've all told me that too, that that's a
Yeah.
huge factor
Yeah.
to be.
No, I think that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of awkward. You get into a department and then you realize there are all these like subterranean conflicts, and now
Yeah.
you're managing them. You're like, wait, so I've got to worry about this person whose work I like, whether
Yeah.
that person likes that person. Like, oh God, don't.
The politics and
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
You don't really want to be dealing with that if you can avoid it, right?
Yeah,
Which
for sure.
here you largely can, which is nice. So
Cool. Cool.
okay, great, good, really, really fun to talk to you, Hayden.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for your time. I really
Sure,
appreciate it.
my pleasure.
All right. See
Bye
you
bye.
later.